Well, hey, Gundam Maniacs, welcome to the Gundam Explained show live. I'm your host, Adam Blue, and joining me, Steven of Midnight Hatter. Steven, what's up, man?
Not a lot. Had a great show yesterday. Missed you on the show talking about Gundam marketing, but I think that you probably got a better experience being in the theater checking out
Oh,
Gundam 3.
well, I thought you were going to say, yeah, I'm going to get to that, but I thought you said I'd have a better experience listening to you and watching your show, which I thought I did because since you are sort of a marketing professional anyway, um, like it was really insightful for me. I was listening as I was driving to the theater, and then when I got out of the theater, and then I finished it, and lots of good points. And I think we're going to talk about some of it. We have a few topics today. One is going to be about a possible new seed game
Yeah.
coming out. And so I think it almost, we could take what you were talking about yesterday and kind of think, okay, is that kind of then a marketing idea that we've talked about before that they can kind of lean into?
Yeah, it
So
kind
I
of
think,
segues nicely into,
yeah,
because we talked about like, hey, Bandai Namco is canceling games, and so the idea that there might be a new Seed game is like, wait a second,
yeah,
that's one that
yeah.
that's still alive, then that's pretty exciting.
It is. But yeah, to start real quick, yeah, the reason I wasn't on your show yesterday, I went and saw Gundam 3 in the theater, which was awesome. I've watched them before, but just seeing them in the theater, I prefer that experience. Like anything, even if I don't like really, really, really like something, I'm gonna do something here real quick. That's bothering me. Okay. Okay. Sorry, guys. Again, new software, but
Well, it's
for
new
real
software,
now.
but it's old software, but it's
Yeah, but it's all but for no. But it, like even if it's something like if Aliens, which I love, they said, oh, that would be in the theater or Blade, I would go and sit, even though I've seen it 1,000 times, I would sit there and watch it because the darkness, the size of the screen, no, and typically people are good about in the theater not having their cell phones out. Like I can really sit there and get a focused experience.
yeah.
Because let me tell you, watching Gundam 3, there was so much more I've realized Requiem for Vengeance pulled from that I think people don't generally talk about. And it further cements some of the choices that were made in and makes me appreciate more the little subtle nods and
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, and you know what's interesting is you just, brought up something that kind of goes back to the idea of, kind of missteps in marketing is, the 3rd movie, Gundam, is called Encounters in Space, right?
mhm,
Awesome subtitle to the
yeah.
movie and really sums up, like, okay, what's the ending of the original Gundam movie trilogy about? But then there was the PS2 video game, Encounters in Space.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that was not about the original series, it was about 0083, or at least the focus was around 0083 because it's
Oh,
like
maybe
the
I'm thinking of
G
something else.
what's that?
Oh, are you sure? Because I think it was wasn't Encounters in Space where it had the original story, but then it unlocked the
It could have been, but, like,
GPO4
on
and
the
GP.
cover of the box, it's like the GPO-1 full burner,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's like
That I'd never seen the cover. Okay.
yeah, I mean, the
Interesting.
focus around it was definitely, I think, a and if
Ah.
Ultronymous is in chat, he can confirm for me because I know that he's a big 0083 guy and that Encounters in Space is his favorite,
Yeah,
PS2 title.
that is a good one. Yeah, because that campaign there is awesome to be those. Yeah, and that's cool. They'd have it on the front to market it. I mean, that does make sense. And actually, let me test something to see if it works.
Uh-oh,
Yeah, there we go.
there it is.
Encounter. Well, I gotta like fix the crop and oh my god, Adam, did you prepare? No. Okay. Um, what is going on? You know what?
But yeah,
Anyway, he says,
there's a lot of those types of things where a subtitle in Gundam is recycled for something that's not necessarily related to the thing that it was at first, right?
yeah, yeah, because he's saying it was marketed for 0083, which makes sense because by then that was the more modernization of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, good game. But so another cool thing about the movie is the music, because I was complaining about the music in the first two, which it's not bad music, but it's different from the show. So it's not as, I mean, the first movie does play some of the classic themes, but the third movie takes the classic themes and kind of extends them and kind of fully realizes them. So I really love the soundtrack of the third. Um, So, this kind of segues into this another thing where it's like I almost don't want to talk about it, but I kind of want to address it. And that's the Requiem for Vengeance content I've been making has been really successful for me, which I'm really proud of. The thing is, it's inviting some comments that are just not nice or they're just bad takes. I'm like, wow, is this what really Gundam fans or the community thinks? And it's almost like I made a video addressing it, and then like my son saw it and he's like, I don't know. And so I was like, well, yeah, let me show Steven. And Steven's like, yeah, I don't know. Because I was kind of burning people. And like the thing is, I don't like to do it, but it's like I like to be funny, but I'm actually doing it for real, even though I'm being funny, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah, yeah.
you were kind of saying that's kind of mean. So I was like,
Yeah, I'm always one of the types of people that's like, attack the content of the argument, don't attack the individual person, right? And
yeah,
so like one
yeah,
of the things that I recently saw this like on Instagram was like they said that Paul Dano in preparation for his role as the Riddler
yeah. The
in the
Batman.
Batman, he abstained from sex for 2 weeks so that he could get in the mind of an incel. And I was like,
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Have a
Okay.
kid.
Clearly,
Or
Paul Dan no, I don't know. I could make all kinds of horrible jokes about it, but, like, clearly there's a and again, I'll go back to, like, this is the idea behind new types, right? Is it's like there's a complete lack of compassion. If you think that the
oh,
reason that people are angry online is because they haven't had sex in 2 weeks, then it represents a massive lack of compassion on your part, and you clearly don't understand those people.
that is a
And
really good point.
and so that's where it's like, I don't want to come from a place of telling people like, "Huh, you're wrong because you don't know what a woman's touch is." I'm like, "No, you're wrong because you're showing the same lack of compassion that people are showing to you, and that's the problem."
Well, and so I will say that one of the comments someone posted like the show's bad because it has a woman in it. Why are they having a woman as the main? And I go, do women trigger you? And then he responded, and he has a response here that we'll go over. To be fair, so what
I
I'm going
mean,
to do
women
is,
do ruin everything, but like
I mean, Quest.
yeah,
Uh,
look at that,
no.
the more
Well, it's funny because someone even made a comment about, oh, and I forgot the character's name with the piercing and the pink hair. It
oh,
was
Arhun?
yeah,
Arhun?
something
Arhun?
strange,
Yeah.
strange, as strange as a Gundam name
I
is,
alwa
but
I kept wanting to say Atherin because it's spelled
that's
almost
right.
exactly like
Yes,
Atherin-Zala, but without the
that's
T, so it's like
that's
Arhun.
what I remember seeing. But anyway, there's a scene where she's like, "Oh no, there's the Federation in front of us. We can't go back. We just have to drive through." And someone made a comment saying, a woman doing that ruins it for everyone. It's like, well, wait a minute. They wrote that. It's not like because the character was a woman, it wrote itself to then make it bad. And think of Kai knowingly brings a spy into white base. How that is even worse. So
Yeah,
it's
I think that there's a difference between a character that you don't like because they exhibit traits that you don't like, and then a character that's poorly written. I think, like, for instance, and you haven't watched Game of Thrones, right?
right.
But,
Yeah.
like, Game of Thrones has some infamously hateable characters. That doesn't mean that they're poorly written characters. They're actually fantastically written
Right.
sociopaths such as Joffrey and Ramsay Snow, but, like, the audience hates them because they are so manipulative and so evil, and so it's like, I feel bad for the actors that portrayed them because then it's like
Yeah. Especially live action,
yeah, there's that parasocial relationship,
Yeah.
like, that I mean
Like I have a Bruce Campbell. Yeah. But
exactly.
that's very interesting. Because like that's what's like a horror movie. If it's written well, it's gonna scare people. Do you think
Mhm.
people just want to be scared out of nowhere? No, but then it's not like they're like, I didn't like that movie. It was scary. And I'm like, well,
Right, that's
it was written that way. Or like if someone watched a movie that made them cry, but they were touched, even though it was sad.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, you could be like, "Oh, I don't wanna watch it because it's sad." Like, people will admit that, but there's some people that want that because, "Oh, I want it." So, like,
Yeah.
when
I
a
love the
character
pain. The
yeah.
pain is the truth.
So, when people then are mad at a character's motivations, it might be like, "Okay, then it was written well to really get you to emotionally invest in what they did," which
Very true.
so that's why I want to cover this right now so we can move on to more fun things.
Yeah.
So let me change my screen here. So guys, I'm gonna go quick. So this was a guy that responded to Gavin, the writer, who wrote. the show. He said, thanks, for the interview. And this guy goes, the show sucks. Get an original idea. I can't believe Bandai actually let you put that out. I won't lie, there were some cool scenes, but it doesn't make up for the fact that you can't write. So right there is when it's like, that's just not a nice way to sort of convey your thoughts on art that someone's making.
Well, and I mean, I love to see when like, okay, so then because I hear this argument all the time about Zeta Gundam, right? Like the dub is terrible. I hate the Zeta Gundam dub. And it's like, okay, what about the Zeta Gundam dub is so bad?
Yeah.
And the crickets, right? So it's
Yeah.
like the writing's so bad. And hey, last night I went on and kind of said that I've changed my opinion about Requiem for Vengeance in a couple of different ways. One thing that I've noticed is that it really doesn't push the envelope as far as like what a Gundam series can do. It really does kind of tread the same ground, the same
Safe.
tried and
Playing
true
it safe.
recycled stories. But if you're going to complain about that from Requiem for Vengeance, then you might as well complain about that for 0080 or 8th MS Team. Like that
Oh,
is
yeah,
such a
especially
like
MS
the
team.
the
Yeah.
story is such a trope that is recycled in almost every mainline UC entry. Shoot, Benager and Merida have the same sort of relationship going on. It's just painted a little differently because it's from Benager's standpoint. But like the idea of enemies that like it really is like the same story over and over and over again. But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that it's Bandai and Gavin playing conservatively because they know that Gundam fans are visceral. We get we get
Yes.
fucking up in arms in the
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and what's funny is then when people complain about the things and we're gonna get to it, that's in the show, it's like, well, that's in Gundam. Like, that's just
yeah.
what Gundam is. So, he says some more, he wants to end this with, like, if Bandai is smart, they will never let another American anywhere near the Gundam IP. Thank you for showing me Netflix will pick anything up. Love, a real Gundam fan. That's just
Ooh,
I have to share this with people. This is incredible. It's almost like TV.
yeah.
Uh, it it's like you could get ideas to write a script. Anyway, this next one, which starts to be okay, because it says the writing is stale, and that's an opinion, sure. Doesn't add anything to the lore, which is kinda true.
Yep,
That's
that
fine. But then the grammar is kinda messed up, but and modern westernize as if it was a Call of Duty script with Gundam. And well, I'm not saying Call of Duty is bad, but usually those are like what, 2 or 3-hour campaigns with the dialogue is maybe 20 minutes total.
I've never actually played a Call of Duty campaign.
They it's not bad, but it's basic stuff. There's no subtext, there's no callbacks.
Yeah.
It doesn't do the usual writing techniques that are used to tell a fulfilling story, but they're still not bad.
Yeah.
Usually what they do is they'll get like a good actor to portray something, and that's what's kind of fun about it. It's like, okay, this actor, I'm seeing
That's
him
pretty
talk to
cool.
me. Kind
So
of a
kinda
different
like,
thing.
Far Cry, the way that they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Cool, cool.
So with this one actually, I tweeted something the other day where it was their whole list of red flags without even watching the show yet, which was hilarious. But they're like red flags for the show being woke. Though to be fair, it's a mix of both, and I don't know what that means. But if it's going to be like that, fine. But it has to be balanced out by conservative values that matches its preachiness or lack thereof. Like now we're getting to someone that they live in a reality where they already have sides of things that they already delineate. Like this I'm
Yeah.
against, this I'm for, and they're living that out. They're projecting that on a
Y
TV show.
I mean, a lot of people do live that way, and I think that I mean, I mentioned this last night. I think that, the audience of The Boys, that TV show is very split politically, and I think,
Oh,
over on the Free Speech Geek podcast, we talked about how, like, even though that show does a good job of being balanced in terms of quantity of attacks on political sides, the quality of the political attacks made towards the right are typically those are more like uppercuts and left hooks, whereas the attacks that they make on the left are like jabs, like, "Oh, we're gonna make fun of the MCU," and, things like that.
oh
But
yeah,
then
that's
if we're
funny.
gonna make fun of something, obviously there was like the big Homelander at Whataburger,
Yeah,
stuff
I
that
think you
they
were talking
posted on
about that
Twitter.
yesterday, weren't
Now,
you?
here's where it's like, I kind of agree with this person to an extent because, there's the famous Michael Jordan quote, "Republicans buy sneakers too." and this is why you should never get political with your marketing and your messaging, is because
Oh,
you
I
know,
see, yeah, I see what you're saying.
people have always said, like, "Michael, why do you, like, market to white kids who don't play basketball?" And he said, "Because Republicans buy sneakers too." And so it's like, you know but
Yeah, that's
here's where the problem is that, like, aside from the cast being, you know, a little multicultural and a couple of females being in the squad, I didn't think that there was anything in the show that was particularly woke. Did you?
no, and I want to be clear because I know you've heard me talk about this, and I feel cringe about it. Is I've been complaining about the new Sonic game where they where they've censored some things, and like that is such a little thing, but it made me like, why are they censoring Sonic? Like, I will totally speak out when something I'm mad about. It's just this Gundam show doesn't have anything, and
Yeah, I don't
that's
think that there's any meat there on that
oh.
particular bone.
So okay, so then by the way, check the Twitter if you want to see what that person wrote. But then this other one just says, "Gonna be so woke." Okay, but with a modern writer. And my thought is, what do you mean by a modern writer? Are we supposed to go to the future and get a writer? Are we supposed to dig up like
You
a
know what?
dead?
Let's just have ChatGPT write everything for us, and we'll like
Yeah. But so this one, this one person is not being mean or rude at all. I think it's kind of funny. It's more of I'm surprised this is their gripe. Is I kind of feel like there should have been more snow on the ground in Romania during that time of year. Only real gripe I have with the show. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I was like, "Yeah, my thought maybe it's because after the colony drop and the weather changing." And then I'm like, "Well, you know what? I actually don't know anything about Romania, so let me look it up."
yeah.
November looks exactly like it does in the show with the the trees, and the snow is mainly in the mountains, but it looks like fall during that time of year. So
Okay.
that's like, well, I don't that person didn't say anything rude or mean. I think that's kind of an example of like someone's like, I don't like this. And sometimes it's like where you hand that letter, like, okay, like what I so
No,
here's one.
and you know what? Maybe that's like a little plot hole that you can point to, but I think if you're gonna make a substantial criticism of the show, then that's pretty weak. But
Yeah, exactly. This other one, Bro, the main protagonist is introduced to us with a non-military haircut with a squad of non-military ready members, and our first scene with her is when one of the only white men that doesn't seem evil gives her respect for saving his life. She just walks away, ignoring him. Nothing like a Gundam protagonist. Damn, bro, you don't give a F about your whole identity. Ha 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 ha. Identity is not your strong suit. We all should have our identity in the same place that every knee will one day bow before. At the end, it sounded like Thanos was saying something, but like, so a couple of things, just like talking about the haircut, and I kind of get it. She has the shaved side of the head. I mean, I guess they did show a scar there, so you can say like, well, like, it technically has story implications.
yeah, I mean,
But
where's the complaints for Ramona Flowers, Merida, like
I
non-military
know,
haircuts, like
I
that's
know Ramona Flowers.
well, Merida's got like the, little dangly she's got like a Ramona Flowers style haircut of like,
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Yeah,
or like Anna Vulgato with his ponytail, like,
yeah, yeah.
it's just a weird time to draw the line in the sand.
Well, and then it also says a squad of non-military ready members. I mean, I think the people in the military, wherever they were in the military, but then you just think of the original Gundam White Base was non-military members that got caught up in this war. And I'm like, the original Gundam, like that's where I'm saying this show kind of has callbacks, even though non-military, but I can understand maybe people having to join up that weren't necessarily with each other, having to figure things out. That is White Base. That
Yeah.
is White Base.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand, like, the haircut itself being, and of course, like, Lieutenant Arhoon having, like, the pink dyed hair. Like, I get the, "Oh, these are, like, woke haircuts," and stuff like that, but, like, I don't know. In the '80s, we wouldn't have called that woke. We would have called that, like, a punk chick, and that would be kind of like the
Yeah.
girl that I would be going after,
In high school.
but then I
Sure.
know
Yeah.
that she has red flags about her, and
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. Yeah, I remember, high school pink hair. Like anyway, so the other thing too is like the first scene with her is when one of the only white men that doesn't seem evil. I, I I'm having trouble like figuring out like what he's really getting at. I mean, we're
I mean, hey, I'll say it. Is it late enough that we can talk spoilers, right?
Oh yeah, spoilers for sure today. Yeah.
The number one character in the entire show is a white guy,
Oh yeah, that's true. Who
Kellern.
pilots the Gundam EX?
Oh, I was gonna say Kellern, like,
Oh, oh, I see what you're getting at.
like, he was the coolest dude on screen, even though
That
it was a very limited cameo. But like Kellern's cameo was freaking awesome, and like the
I
fact that he
know.
came in and he gave purpose, like he was. So I hey, I studied literature in college, so I know a thing or two about this. Like, without him coming in and introducing that call to action for the character. So you know how like the hero's journey, there's the call to action, the refusal of the call, that sort of thing. That whole interaction happened in that room where Kellern says, "Hey, here's the mission, here's the quest, here's what I want you to
Oh,
do." And at first she's like, I'm not sure about this. I don't really want to do it. Refusal of the call. And then there's like that crossing the threshold moment where it's like, okay, now I'm going to answer the call to adventure. I'm going to go steal these GMs. And then that is the crossing the threshold moment where the character goes out of their safe space and into safe space. There you go. There's a triggering word, triggering phrase. She goes into the unknown and into a dangerous place. Usually it's called perdition. It's hell. So, I
yeah.
mean, this is like classic storytelling tropes,
You're
and
right. That
Kellern is
which
one of the agents of this story. He's the Obi-Wan Kenobi to Solari's Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, which I think kind of goes back to when we're talking about how this is written. It is written well because the structure is there. Even if you don't agree with how it plays out, it has the structure. And I
Yeah.
wanted to bring up Harlan Littlejohn. He said, "What's even wrong with something being woke? I like representation and progressive themes that challenge me, and the stuff like that. Also, do these types of people even watch Gundam?" And yeah, some of them know, and we'll get to that in a second. But you're right because really the idea of representation is good. It's just that I think what has happened is there's times where that is the priority over the story. And
Yeah.
that happened with Castlevania, the show I like, which it was still actually enjoyable. But as a Castlevania fan, I was like, well, they changed that character just for that when that character really had a whole other point, in the game. And it's those
Yeah.
things. It goes back and forth where I think there's nuance here.
Yeah.
Representation is good, but, what were you going to say?
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, what's funny to me is it's like the woke crowd should be angry because the bad guys were the more diverse side. Like the Federation was all white dudes, like every single one of them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because Star Wars Squadrons, that was when I first realized it, and it kind of bothered me because in Star Wars Squadrons, you play on the TIE fighter, the Empire. Wow, I can't
Yeah.
believe I said it like that. The Empire side, and it's all diverse people, which to me, the Empire is kind of like the Xeon. It's the white German Nazi type. And then I would think the Rebel Alliance would be the diverse type, but they changed it around because they wanted you to play as the bad guys that would then be the good. It was very interesting.
Yeah, but I
But
mean, you're gonna see this kind of hypocrisy in all fandoms. Like my favorite example of this is when woke people talk about how much they love Firefly, when it's like you realize that like the protagonists of Firefly are basically like the Confederate South. Like they
yeah,
even make that joke. It's like, Unification Day. You sound like one of them independents. Like you,
yeah, yeah. There was
like
a lot of that in there, which was interesting.
yeah, but
But back then, or most of the time, these things are used as parallels on purpose to kind of set up a good grounding, not that it's trying to be a message. And that's, I
right.
think, the mistake people are like, it's like, they're sending a message. It's an agenda. Oh, if I look, I'm going to be brainwashed. It's like, no, bro, just
Yeah.
watch. But yeah, this other one is when I told that guy, "Oh, I guess women trigger you." This is his response. He goes, "Let me guess, people not liking your buddy's show for valid reasons triggers you." So it's like, okay, got me. But it's not like this guy's my buddy. Like he took time out of his day and scheduling at different points to finally get time with him because he's busy. We're not buddies or anything.
And this goes to the points that I was making last night about marketing is like Bandai was doing nothing with Erasmus Brosdow or
Oh,
Gavin
yeah,
Hignight, like the director and
right.
writer for this show. You think about like every time there's a new Hollywood show, how many times do you see the actors and the directors getting interviewed on different, podcasts and late night shows? They had none of that going on. And so literally the only person that's talking to the creators of this show is you.
Yeah.
And if this is the reception that they're gonna get, then, we
It's
might as well just close up shop and never sell anything Gundam related again.
I know. I know. That's what part of me again trying to bring this up is to show people this is not the way. I mean, really, this is if this is something you see yourself doing, there's probably some deeper things that I would love to help. I mean, reach out to me, and talk to. I'm not the best at that though. This other one, bro, watch series no bad, but don't like characters, bro, pink hair, tattoos, some in the nose or ear, and this series is not canon main universe. Disagree with that. I don't know what to say, and I feel bad because the child looks 8 in their picture. So we'll just say parents shouldn't let them post on YouTube. That's that. Okay.
Yeah, are your videos not age restricted?
Yeah, that's right. They're not for kids. Okay, this one is there are only 2 gripes I have. Mine are the mobile suits moved too fast. It didn't seem to have weight, but it's fine. That's fair. This other one, major, the shoehorned in Newtype conversation. Yes, Zeon Daikun's work will be somewhat common knowledge among Zeon loyalists, but maybe that too was swept aside by the Zabi regime. Either way, I don't think the grunts would have that sort of expert definition like it was the Grips Wars or something. I'm not even sure the Newtype lab within Xeon at the time knew that much beyond the ability to control funnels. Now, this is where I go, well, technically, June of 0079, the Flanagan, that was the Augusta lab that Dr. Flanagan ran. They were already doing that. I mean, Cassilia had the Newtype core. It was a known thing. There's that whole middle section of the original series. It's in the second movie where they're having that whole they're doing physicals of everybody to be like, okay, who's a Newtype so we can use them? Who's a Newtype? It was a known thing. Like,
and so this is a hotly debated topic online. Is like, whose Red Zaku does Lieutenant Arhoon have tattooed on her shoulder? Is it Char's or is it Johnny Ridden's?
So that's a good point because I think either way was Johnny Ridden a confirmed Newtype?
I don't think so. But
yeah, that's
it's like, okay, if it's late enough into the war that Char is like some kind of hero that other soldiers are getting tattoos of him and fangirling about it, then it's theoretically possible.
Right.
But I would say of all of the criticisms of the show that we've seen so far, of which I've seen 2, which is the mobile suits moving too fast, and then but yeah, so of all the criticisms, I would say that this is the most valid for sure.
Well, the major part about the Newtypes, just because it's like the dialogue they had in Requiem for Vengeance is similar to the one in Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah, and I think that they do kind of downplay it to a certain extent. Like it's, I think even Solari's kind of like, well,
Oh, and another thing that's interesting that I didn't catch until watching Mobile Suit Gundam 3 in a theater was Sayla and Mirai's Newtype abilities mirrored Solari's because they would sit there and stare off and then be like, oh, something's happening. Or Sayla would just sit there and stare off and be like, Char's coming.
Yeah.
Like
they would do the Obi-Wan thing, like, a 1,000 voices cried out all at once, and
like with the solar ray.
Yeah.
The colony laser. Yeah.
Solar ray was the
solar.
Colony laser was Zeta.
What was the one that the Federation had? Because I just saw it last night.
That was the solar ray. What wasn't it?
Okay, maybe yeah. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, I'm confusing the things. Okay, yeah, that's right. Colony laser was didn't he have to? Well, okay, you know what? I don't want to get into this because then that takes away from. We're going to come back to that stuff. The weapons of war used by Garen. Okay. So anyway, that to me, when someone is saying that they then don't think this would happen when there's evidence that it did happen, does that mean they don't know Gundam and they're complaining about something that they just assume is not Gundam?
Well, and
you know what I mean?
Is this kind of reminds me of some of the criticisms that I've gotten on some of my Gunpla videos where it's like, so this criticism is that the characters seemingly knew too much. And then what I think you'll find later is that a lot of people complained about the ending because they think that like the characters knew too little.
Oh yeah.
It was like, well, why wouldn't Solari have gone and joined the AUG?
Yeah, I saw that.
Like what?
Okay, yeah, let's move on because I want to get through these. There's not many left.
Cool, cool.
This one, Requiem for Vengeance, was awful. I went with low expectations and it didn't even meet those. It was clearly made by fans of 08MS Team, but they've completely forgot that was carried by a charming and likable cast. And I kind of agree. I wouldn't say that the cast in, I mean, they weren't. I kind of get it. Sometimes anime has more of that flair of the characterization, and it wasn't necessarily, yeah, it wasn't necessarily in Requiem for Vengeance. So, like, I think that is completely valid. We get dull characters that say the most basic military movie dialogue. A prime example of the director and writer's misunderstanding of 08MS Team is the Guff Custom. That was MS spec specifically for Norris, blah, 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 blah. So he's trying to say the Guff Custom wouldn't have been in Requiem for Vengeance, but actually, the Guff Custom, there was more of them. It was even at Jaburo. Midnight Fenrir Corps had the Guff Custom. So it's like another example of someone saying, I don't like it because this wouldn't be possible, when in fact, in Gundam lore, there were other Guff Customs. So it's like, okay, so you don't like it because of that? Because that's the most the person detailed what they disliked.
Now, if they had had Ifrits, then we could have had a, like,
Oh,
wait a second, like, we
I know.
know
Yeah,
that there are only
I've
8
heard you
Ifrits.
count those off before. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
you're an Ifrit guy. Okay, so here's another one. This is by far the worst Gundam animation I've ever seen, and I give it a negative rating. The dialogue animation says the Zaku saved many lives, but in the original Mobile Suit Gundam 0079, the war initiated by Zeon against the Federation killed nearly 6 billion. The ironic part is that the Zaku was Zeon's most advanced killing machine. But I think that's the point. I mean, the Zaku, in terms of what Zeon people think and the propaganda that they show a lot of in MS Igloo, yeah, the Zaku saved lives. The Zeons are going to think that. That's kind of the
Yeah.
point of what they're getting at here.
I mean, especially when you think of it in terms of, like, the mobile suit revolutionized warfare because at the time, it was all battleships, and the reason that the Federation was winning the war is because they had the better navy, they had the better fleet. But if you shoot down a battleship that's got hundreds of people on it and crew, that's killing a lot more people than shooting down a single mobile suit. And so,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
a single mobile suit does save lives. You know, it goes back to, like, the conversation that you might have about, like, discounting a product too much, and it's like, "Oh, well, we're losing money by selling this product for a cheaper price," and it's like, "No, you're not losing money, you're making less profit, but you're still making money." You know what I mean?
Big
It's
problem
all
of all corporations. Isn't that
exactly.
Square Enix's game? like, like it doesn't make enough, nothing sells enough.
See, and this is man, this is the problem I had with Witch from Mercury, is they didn't understand the corporations. But yeah, I mean, it's all point of view, right? I think that people unfortunately take things literally, but not seriously when a character says them. So there's like that example of I think someone got really upset because in Gundam narrative they were like, wait a second, the Unicorn Gundam was dismantled. They said it was dismantled, and it's like the character said that. There's this thing that people have been doing for a little while. It's called lying.
Yeah, and good written shows will have those character traits in there because it makes you think, you know?
Yeah,
Okay, just 2 more, and then we're gonna move on.
yeah,
This looked like
please.
a game. That's valid. The
Yeah,
story was good, but the animation was totally valid.
yeah.
If they really wanted to do well with the animation, they could have used other non-game software. I don't know about that. I mean, I know they're talking about Pixar, but a Pixar budget is probably 80 times the amount that
Yeah.
some um,
Yeah,
so
if Gundam got a Pixar budget, then we would be having a
uh,
very different conversation right now.
it I think it would be like Cuckoo's Doan's Island, but everything would have been CG
Yeah,
because I thought that was a real that well made in that kind of Pixar realm where it's not violent, but it still had a story. I know there's some people in the Gundam Explained Discord that said they did not like Cuckoo's Doan's Island and
really,
like, wanted to do a G-watch over that. It's like that'd be interesting because it is kind of different in a way, you
it
know.
is, it is.
Um, okay, so there are other Gundam shows that show just as much effects. The designs are too busy. Looks like so the designs are too busy. I can totally see that. But
Yeah,
saying looks like a Western designed the mobile suits. Now that seems like an attack because really, it, Western didn't design the mobile suits. Actually, designed by the guy that designed the OMS
I
team
know,
suits.
and I love that people are still floating like the, "Oh, well, they must have been AI generated," like, obviously, they look
Oh,
like they're AI generated, And whenever people say that, whenever even people bring up like the whole idea of Eastern and Western mecha anyway, it's frustrating because they're painting a dichotomy that doesn't exist in reality.
Right.
Because like if you think about what people consider Western mecha, they think like BattleTech, right? But almost all BattleTech designs are stolen from Japanese mecha and just
Exactly.
repurposed.
It-
So it's like this whole like East West thing or like artist versus AI or we create these arbitrary labels and then we try to fall on one side of that label and then paint the other side as the bad guy.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's what I was alluding to earlier is a lot of times people live in this reality where they have to have an enemy or something that they stand against. It's like you don't really have to have anything to stand against. That might just be bad for your health. But let's go to this last one. I love the series, but I didn't like the ending. She basically abandoned everything she was even trying to do. Oh, let's save the children by killing more children. The entire time I watched it, it was odd only because they wanted to make Xeon the good guys or the anti-hero, despite what Xeon has done throughout the war. They are the ones evading Earth. Now, the reason I thought this was interesting is at the beginning, he's complaining about exactly what I liked about what happened, how you had sympathy for Solari, but by the end, she's still in the war. Even if she's like, I kind of want to stop what's going on, but she's willing to fight to do it and not be with her son. To me, that leans more into a Xeon bad guy, sort of. Like if you had like a graph of like a Federation good guy and a Xeon bad guy, she'd be closer to that.
I was gonna
But
say, isn't that kind of like Megatron in Transformers 1?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Kind of the same thing.
he's
And oh,
sympathetic,
what
but
else?
he's the bad guy.
Yeah, there's something else I was just no, that actually happened in Requiem for Vengeance when her, squad mate, I forgot the guy's name, pulled the
LaShawn?
gun who?
LaShawn?
Yes,
Yeah.
pulled the gun on the dude. I was like, "Whoa," so he gets, like, really angry and and so, when they're saying, like, okay, only because they wanted to make Xeon the good guys, but no, they made the writing. What I loved about it is you were getting sympathy for the characters, but then by the end, it was see Xeon. Like
Yeah.
so,
Well, it's the same thing that you get from, like, the prequel trilogy, right? Is it's like we have sympathy for Anakin Skywalker as a person because it's like,
yeah,
man, all these terrible things happen to him, but he still becomes Darth Vader.
yeah,
And I think I've said it like 100 times at this point where it's like heroes and villains have the same origin story, they just react differently to it.
yeah.
Camille lost his parents, Char lost his parents. One became a new type and saved the AU, the other became a new type and tried to drop an asteroid onto Earth. So it's like,
Yeah. And so the reason I wanted to go through this is because as a content creator, when I'm checking comments, because there's awesome people that leave awesome comments all the time, and I feel like that's what needs to be praised all the time. But that's almost like by default we should expect that. When what then I go and look at is people kind of saying mean things like saying the writer shouldn't be a writer or that he can't write, or then claiming, well, I don't like it because of this. And I'm just like, well, as a Gundam fan, I want to tell you that that actually does happen in Gundam, but to be angry
and just
about
to
it.
be intellectually consistent about it. Like, if you're gonna hate something, then like, okay, I hate female protagonists. Okay, then I don't like any Gundam that has a female protagonist. Of which what there's like two, so it's not like that's like, but no,
Right.
you get
Yeah.
my point. Is it's like if you're gonna criticize the haircuts, then you hate Anna Volgato too. And if you say that, then hey, we're copacetic. Like I get it.
Yeah.
Non-military standard. I'm cool.
Yeah. No, so and lastly, from Ian, that quote about living long enough to see yourself become the villain, which I think is something that I think it's interesting how that's a story for villains, like if the hero's journey, if you were to look at that and see how a villain could be born. But I think on a small level that happens with each of us individually, where sometimes we might fall into a trap where we have an ideal that's mainly being fed to us by our surroundings, or maybe we're seeking out things that enforce that, and we go so far down into it that we end up not being a good iteration of ourselves. And I think through life, we have to like navigate that, be able to recognize it. Hopefully, we have loved ones around us that can identify that and let us know. And so part of that too is, for people that say things mean to others or just for the sake of it, it's like, think about that. Think about how much comes out of life if you think about things half full instead of half empty. I know it was easy for me to be just basic default negative about things, but over time it's like I fake being happy about things, and over time you're more positive, you change people around you,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Um, good. I'm glad I
Oh,
got all
cool.
that off my chest because now we're going to go into some more interesting news. Um,
Gundam therapy over.
yeah, and that is this Chigoken Gundam EX 300. It seems like a lot, but I think it seems worth it for what it is
It's
since it's
less than a
metal.
metal build Zeta.
Yeah, yeah. But what I loved is how with the beam effect part, they're adding that little blue down
Very cool.
down there.
I wish that they'd
Love it.
done with that with the kit.
What's that?
I wish that they'd done that with the high grade. The high grade just has the standard,
Oh,
like, beam saber effect part.
interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. But you know what? Man, 300 is a lot. I'm gonna try to like sell a kidney or something, getting all these things. I'm gonna try to find a way to get this. I have been kind of selling some old action figures lately, and um, I
Okay,
might
okay.
I might do that. I mean, but what about you? I mean, would you grab something like this? Like, because I think you like the design, but you're not crazy about the design, right?
No, and I think I shared on Discord, someone actually redesigned the Gundam EX, but, like, they basically took existing Gundam designs and they, like okay, it's like, okay, this is the Easy 8 head with the ground Gundam arm or shoulders, and, like
Oh,
so they actually made the Gundam EX, but in the style of a traditional mobile suit Gundam, without all of, like, kind of the extra kibble, greebles, whatever you wanna
yeah,
call it.
yeah.
And I thought that that was fantastic. The design, it still doesn't speak to me, but I have to say that I didn't mind it as much when it was animated.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
It's, I
and I
mean,
mean, man, that GM though, like,
oh,
the way that the
yeah.
GM that
I
was
know. I can't wait for something to come out like that. And here's my thing. This is in my top 10 Gundam designs, which I love
wow.
it because so when it comes to Gundam, like when it comes to mecha, I rarely find mecha designs that I like. It's almost like the idea
Interesting.
is better than the execution most of the time. I think for me, Gundam was the first with like the GM variants, the ground Gundam, or the Mark II, where that's still Mark II still has influence of like the super robot, but it's still like grounded. Like to me, that's like pinnacle
Yeah,
mecha design. This seems to kind of take that traditional Gundam look, but almost I don't not scale back in terms of design, but scale back in terms of making it look more realistic. And so I think I like that because Witch from Mercury had little kibble bits wherever,
yeah.
but it didn't kind of make sense. It was just random. But this, it almost makes like it's part of its form and the function of it. So
Yeah, and I think it was Gundam Pixel on Twitter that said that, one of the designers confirmed that it was supposed to look skeletal in its design, which was part of the, part of,
right.
like, the color scheme and, of course, like, the way it moves and, hey, it's Halloween, it's supposed to look a little spooky.
And
Um,
something I didn't realize, but having 4 Vulcan head cannons, which I
yeah,
didn't even think it had them at first.
no,
Because I was just thinking the chain gun that it's got.
that should be all you need, right?
Yeah, but that's why this thing is so cool to me. Like, I love it. Okay, and then another thing I wanted to touch on was, this Bandai Namco trademarks Battle Destiny in Japan.
Oh,
So
great. Another battle game for me to mix up names with. It's like we got Battle Alliance, we've got
I know.
Battle Assault, Battle Chronicle, Battle Operation.
Battle and then something, and it
Yeah.
worked. But, the company previously released a Mobile Suit Gundam game for PS Vita titled Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Battle Destiny, which was developed by Artdan Corporation, who did all those battle games. Back in May 2021, Bandai Namco Group announced Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Project Ignited, an initiative to implement various Mobile Suit Gundam Seed series measures around the world, including a new game that was to be formally introduced at a later date. In the 3+ years that have passed, Bandai has yet to officially announce the game. Now, this could be the game, but also it's been a few years that Bandai has then announced cancellations of games.
Right.
And there was even this recent one about a week ago where they announced. So it could be that. So this kind of goes back almost to kind of your marketing stuff in a way, like what Bandai Namco should really be doing. They have a back catalog of amazing Gundam video games that all they need to do is port, remaster, whatever it takes. Like at this point, I wouldn't even be upset if it's not going to be on Xbox because I understand if you're porting a Vita game that's going to be using the base PlayStation, even That's more of like 3 Vita era, into
Yeah.
4. Like, I could see that being hard to port, but they need to get their back catalog and just port that stuff.
Dude, it's wild because, you look at a company like Nintendo, and Nintendo has been making money off of Super Mario Brothers 3 for
Yeah.
40 years, the 40, 30 years, 30 years, because 1993,
Yeah, that's right.
2003, no, 40 years. Well, this will
No,
be 30th.
it's right. It's over 30, but
Yeah,
under
it's over
40.
30. The
Something.
point is,
Yeah.
every single Nintendo console that comes out, you are guaranteed to get master collection re-releases of some Mario, some original NES Legend of Zelda. You'll get some of the SNES titles. What's amazing is that like all of these Gundam titles are all on either PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. How easy would it be to just drop them on the PlayStation Network and let people download them on the PS4, PS5?
I know, especially if they added, the recent one, the side stories, the collection,
Yeah.
because,
And if they could patch it with like just we don't even need the English language, just English
the,
text.
text, yeah.
Yeah.
And all I would ask if they added a function to turn off the targeting camera, because as
Mm,
cool as that game was, it always did the auto lock all the time,
yeah.
and that I would rather it be more of a manual process. Like, okay, I wanna target that one. So, okay, well, you know what? That out of the way, there is some stuff I usually bring up at the beginning that I waited to the end because, again, I wanted to kinda get out of the that's the last I'll talk about people's, random comments. This thing I think you'll appreciate. The Robot Spirits Ver Anime Mark II came in today. Um,
Beautiful. I don't think I've seen a bad Gundam Mark II ever.
right. So interesting you brought that up because when I do this video, I'm going to compare it with the original release. And the original release, I wasn't too crazy about it for some reason. But then when I saw this as Ver Anime and then saw the original release, I was like, wait a minute. The original release takes some liberties to kind of ground it. And I was like, that's pretty cool because it might be hard to see on the thing, but especially like the head, the eyes of, I wonder if, my light's like over here. The eyes are bigger. The face almost has a longer face with kind of the bigger eyes. That's more of a anime thing. So they portrayed her perfectly.
Yeah.
Also, there's some extra arm articulation or shoulder articulation that I didn't catch from the first Mark II that I accidentally caught from this, where it even like swings out even more. So
Oh,
like you can have it go all the way back, and then you could have it go like forward quite a bit.
that's a big deal because I know that like a lot of the traditional Gundam poses are holding the beam rifle out and then having the
That's exactly it. In order to reenact or make the poses that are found in animation, it requires articulation that I wouldn't care for because it's like, well, it's not going to move like that. But if you're like, okay, if I'm trying to make it look all edgy from the anime, which I think Seed really leaned into, it's good to have that stuff.
yeah.
Um, and then the
Also,
other
oh, go
thing,
ahead.
no, actually, you go ahead because I'm gonna do something I forgot.
Oh, I was gonna say, I guess the big news from yesterday, Gundam related, is that the Gundam Next Future Pavilion they unearthed or revealed the life size Gundam statue in Japan.
Yeah, you told me about that. So, what is it? Just another iteration of it? Just
Yeah, I don't know if it's recycling some of the old parts because it does look like it's made of the parts from the moving Gundam, but with like a couple of extra flare pieces added onto it. But it's in this cool pose where its hand is extended to the sky, and so they had
okay.
what I guess is called like a heading ceremony. It's not a beheading because they're not taking the head
Oh,
off, but they like made a huge deal about putting the head on. But you know what? Going back to that marketing discussion, I think that the life-size Gundams, keep them coming
yeah.
because
So I guess that's what's going on here. Because when I first got into Gundam, it was the RX-78-2, and then I think they then did the Unicorn, and then the newer RX-78-2
the
FF or
yeah, the
something.
F00, yeah.
F-Zero, okay. And then, so I guess they took that, they're just moving it somewhere else. Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Mhm.
Because then it keeps it from being stale, I guess, almost like it's just like, here's this carnival ride right here that's been there for 40 years and everyone's bored of it. Yeah, moving it's yeah. Um,
Yeah.
okay, real quick, on my head, because I need to get a white background, it says Art Rovo Gundam. Just a shout out to Art Rovo. If you didn't see it, I did a stream on Saturday where I was building the Sinanju Stein,
Pretty
which
sweet.
Verka, which a couple things. One, I never thought I would ever get this suit. So he provided it to me for, the purpose of the sponsor stream. And this is the best Verka I've ever built. There is not one issue I have with it.
I was gonna say, how many Verkas have you built? I know we both built the
Oh,
Zeta.
how many have I built? Actually, maybe only two, the Zeta and the Victory 2. So maybe only two.
Okay.
But
So
hey,
the
two's a good, because both of those, they have things that fall apart, and it's usually the arms. But this thing is solid. The
sturdy.
building it was fun. The only issues I had were my mistake because it comes with an extra set of runners, I think, for a previous version of this. And I was putting on the wrong inner leg and I couldn't get the pieces to fit on. And I'm like, they did this wrong. Kind of like when you're building Legos and you're like, they missed a piece. They missed a piece. No, no, but it was all me. And man, this thing is solid. This thing, like nothing falls apart. And dude, the weapons it has, like the gun, which
That is a
this is
serious beam
the
rifle.
rocket and it has, you can like take it apart, do all these crazy things with it. And then the shield also introduced some cool things where like you can have the beam blades or tomahawk come out that, or you can like change it around. And
Man, I've got to get a Sinanju. That is one Xeon suit that I don't have a single kit of. And I've
that you're a
heard
fan of?
that the real grade Sinanju is like one of the top real grades. So
That's right. I hear that a lot. And see, I'd never bought it because I typically don't buy the Xeon stuff, even though I like it and I love the sleeves. Well, I love like the sleeve look, especially it's all color separated pieces. It's not like a sticker or anything. So
that's one of the
well
things
done.
about the most of the sleeve suits is that they don't have the color separated parts. So that's very cool that they do for the
Right. The other thing too that came in from Art Rover Gundam, although I did the purchase because if the idea is I'm trying to figure out this relationship. I want to promote our Art Rover Gundam on my stream, but I want to do it very naturally, organically, or on the channel. So I still buy things. It's not like he just sends me stuff. So I bought and you got it too, right? The RX-78 2.0. Did it already come in?
It has not come in yet. I think it's coming in tomorrow. But
Nice.
but yeah, and you know what? He did post over on Instagram that sort of a community update that he's looking to break ground at like the brick and mortar store.
Right.
So he's a ways to go on paying the down payment on the lease, and so any orders that come in now go a long way to helping him do that. So
yeah, that's a good point.
So anybody who does want to buy some Gunpla, particularly things like Verka, I mean, he's got a ton of master grade Verka stuff in stock.
Yes.
I think he still has some real grade Granddaddy 2.0s. So yeah,
But don't buy the narrative yet.
Those things anyway.
Yeah. Don't buy the narrative yet because I'm gonna try to buy that once I get paid again because done too much. But yeah, that's a good point though because
kits, which he also has some Zoids kits, which like I've got my the
T-Rex thing,
Dino Breaker, that Goose, our mutual supporter, sent me.
Yeah.
He Art Rovo actually has the updated version of that, the Berserk Führer. So
okay, because I need to get a Zoid. I
want to be a good one for you.
That is, yeah, because that's the other cool thing about it is like how this guy's really nice and he was starting out of his garage and now he's getting his own place. Like I love that idea, and I like kind of even with me, it's like this channel I want to keep growing it, and it's like I want to work with other people, like you and like him. It's like let's grow our stuff. So yeah, you're gonna see Art Rovo around here, and I think another thing too to kind of help him be more successful is if you guys ever have any input or something about like the store or whatever.
If there's something you want for him to have in stock, let him know. Like, because he's got connections, particularly when I've talked to him, he's talked about like Kotobukiya distribution.
Oh yeah,
I know that like a lot, like, obviously Bandai kits, everyone can get their hands on them through, I guess, as a Bluefin is the main distributor. But Kotobukiya is you got like, I guess, the Hexagear line and like Zoids and things like that, and they're a lot harder to come by, so you don't typically see them on most most sites that aren't just like Amazon.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask him about robot spirits, but I want to wait because I feel like that's a burden for anyone to carry because the comic book shop near me has had the same robot spirits for like 3 years now. And so I wait when they're on clearance and I'll get in their Zaku. I have a couple land type, right? From 08 MS team.
Oh, nice.
I
Yeah.
forget what when I'm heavily invested into one series, I then forget the names of the specific suits from another. Um,
Okay.
you know, you know how it
I,
is.
I thought you were gonna say when I'm heavily invested in one series, I forget everything about it. And I was like, yeah, me too.
No, that's kind of the same. Hey, let me ask. I could be wrong, but do you have rainbow colored hair?
Rainbow hair?
Because it looks like that in the video. Maybe the lighting, it looks great. Actually,
No, I think
it's the blue and the
it's
red.
the combination of my grays are being like I've got lights that are multicolored shining on my hair.
It looks amazing, by the way. That just I'm just saying, like, yeah, no, that was cool. Yeah, so that's about it for today. This is fun. I want to thank everyone that let me kind of get into this thing because it bothers me when people are being mean, but at the same time, I feel bad because we're all kind of the same. It's just different circumstances in our life kind of got us to where we are. And I'm not always the best at responding. It's like I want to be able to respond to someone to be able to like show them or tell them, but that's why I have you guys. That's why I have you, Steven. You really help me with stuff like that when.
Yeah, I try to encourage people to this is my biggest takeaway is like know when you're in a pissing match and get out if you are. If because we have a bunch of mutual friends that will get into arguments online, particularly about Gundam and other
Yeah.
anime and things like that. And sometimes you're just not going to change the other person's mind. And so it's not worth it's not worth your time, honestly. Like there's so many better things to be doing than arguing with people online.
Yeah.
And when I notice that I'm getting into it, I'm like, all right, time to log off. Like, because it's just really not worth it.
No, I know what you mean because then like it's almost like you're doubling down on something when that's not really what is going on, and we're all
And
friends at the end of the day.
they
Yeah.
don't care. Like,
Yeah.
it's different when I'm talking to someone like you, and it's like, okay, well, if you have one interpretation of Requiem for Vengeance's ending, for instance,
Mhm.
I have my own. And if we disagree, then let's maybe build a synthesis around that, right? You've got a thesis, I've got a thesis. We put them together, create a synthesis. Um, but I don't necessarily care what some random schmo on Twitter thinks, and so I'm probably just gonna mute them. Like,
Yeah, and you know what? You brought up something I'm gonna end with, um, because this is from Lucas Garrett, who's a supporter. He did this, and he did it very well. So he goes, "This is about Requiem for Vengeance." He goes, "A great series review, Adam. Very good. That being said, I have to disagree with your take on why Captain Aria Solari stayed on Earth as a mother with new type abilities, and after what happened to the young pilot of the Gundam EX mobile suit, she is hellbent on finding and protecting young new types." Drawn into combat zone. She's not vengeful and she didn't lose her humanity. She was motivated by her humanity. Sadly, that means she might never see her son again. And in a way, it's a callback to Temray talking to a then Lieutenant Bright Noah about the deployment of child soldiers in the 1 Year War. The irony is that his own son would become a child soldier as a pilot of the original RX-72 Gundam. And I
absolutely.
had to pin that because that was such a great example
So
of,
articulated, and
yeah,
I
disagreeing.
fall in that same category where I'm like, I don't think that there was this heel turn for Solari. Like, everyone else in her sphere, like Arhoon and LaShawn, they were motivated by vengeance. They were like, "These guys killed our brothers, we're gonna go murder this Gundam pilot. I don't care if we have to kill him in his sleep, like, that we don't care." When she realized it was a kid, she was like, "No, no, no. LaShawn, don't shoot him. Like, stop this. Like, let's pump the brakes." And then when she saw that he finally does die, it's like, you know what? If this war is going to keep going on and I have to choose between either I fight or other kids get in mobile suits and fight, then it might as well be me that goes out and fights instead of my son.
Yeah, you know what? And I have to remember what it is. There's a movie, and I want to say it stars a female character, and she's going through that, and by the end, the thing she was trying to save gets killed, and then she just turns, and it reminded me of that. I need to bring that up just for the comparison. But I do like, yeah, what you and Lucas Garrett are saying. That's why I appreciate Lucas Garrett's comment. Makes sense. Oh, and he's in chat, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. Good way to end on a positive note of how, as new types, we should be understanding each other. Yeah.
Come on, let's evolve.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Now,
Well, thanks,
I'm
everybody.
less patient than you. I'm willing to drop an asteroid onto Earth to make it happen.
I don't know. I think you keep me in check. maybe that it's, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna head out. So is Steven. So yeah, check Steven's stream if you haven't, to kind of deep dive into the marketing stuff we were talking about. But
Yeah, cheers.
until next time. Yeah, see you guys later.